So our next speaker is Mr. Shashank Barsin. Please come. Yeah. So Mr. Shashank, he works as the program manager at Microsoft. Shashank is the program manager responsible for container and Kubernetes scenarios in Azure pipelines. He is currently leading Microsoft's effort on deployment strategies, automated canary analysis, and on being able to run CI/CD pipeline on Kubernetes clusters. Welcome, Mr. Shashank.
Yep. So speaking about the reason why I come to work, and this video more or less gives me that reason. For me, it's more about what's the most technical problem that we can solve, and at the same time, how does that help our end customer in terms of being able to see that, hey, that product that we are building is being used by millions and millions of developers, and which eventually reaches millions and millions of customers, right? So I work as a program manager with Azure Pipelines, which is our CI/CD offering, and there are a whole bunch of other suites as well in terms of Azure Boards, Azure Repos, and Azure Artifacts. But before I actually get into the demos, I just wanted to show this particular architecture slide so that everyone's aware of the landscape of things that I'm going to be speaking about, right? So most of it is everyone knows about GitHub. So that's where our source control lies, right? That's where we are checking in our code, and we have version control being done over there, pull requests being raised against the repository, and that's where most of the collaborative development happens, right? And after that, now there are two ways of looking at things. Now this particular box you'll see over there, the Kubernetes production cluster, just think of it as one particular deployment target. It could have been a VM, it could have been any other deployment target as well, but that's where you're actually deploying your code, and that's what's serving your websites and whatnot. That's core compute, and that's where cloud comes in, right? And now, how do I get my packages out there, till there? So I can build my images and push it into a container registry, deploy it out there, and do the same thing for, one second, do the same thing for the other artifacts as well in case of Helm charts, all those aspects. But that works only when you're in a team of, let's say, 1 to 2 developers. What about when you're in a team of, let's say, 5,000 developers, 70,000 developers? That's the scale at which Microsoft operates, right? And how do you make sure that all your changes are being deployed in a secure and a compliant manner as well? So these are the questions that we have to answer when we are operating at scale. So in that context, that's where Azure Pipelines comes in, right? So all these operations that I'm seeing over here that I can perform even outside of a pipeline on a CLI or on a UX in the laptop or directly hitting the REST APIs, how do I do them from the context of a CI/CD pipeline? And that's where CI/CD pipeline comes in. And today I'll be just showcasing a few demos in terms of this flow. How do I build an image, push it out to container registry, and then deploy it out there? And then also Terraform. So a lot of people know that hey, I can create resources in the Azure portal or AWS portal, but that's just me doing it in an interactive manner on the portal. Can I codify that as well? Can I make that version controlled as well? Can I automate that process as well? Terraform helps a lot with that. So we're going to be taking a brief look at that. And the last bit that I want to focus on before I get into the demos is the monitoring and logging. Look, never ever deploy an application into production without actually having logs and monitoring enabled over there, because you want to know how your application actually performs. Is it performing as intended? Is there any bugs? Is there any regression with the newest deployment that I've deployed over there? So you want to be monitoring for these things, and whenever you're deploying a new deployment, make sure that the newer deployment is at least performing as better or probably as good or even better than the previous deployment. So that's why monitoring and logging becomes important, right? So now that I've shown this, so let me go into the pipe. One second. It's fine. What did you do? No, it's not okay. Okay. So fine. So the talk says that it's DevOps in microservices world, right? So let's quickly take a look at the scenario itself. Now you have hundreds of teams, hundreds of pipelines, and hundreds of repositories, and probably they're deploying to the same Kubernetes cluster or different Kubernetes clusters or wherever it is, or any other VMs as well. So you need to figure out, okay, let's take this scenario, something that will bother me the most. If I'm a developer and I'm being paged at 2 a.m. in the night, 3 a.m. in the night saying that, hey, dude, you have an on-call, shit hit the fan, you need to figure out what to do next. So then how do I trace back? That's the most important question for me. So how do I do that is that in the context of Azure Pipelines, something that we worked on very recently and we introduced during May was environments. So environment is, this is actually an environment. So environment is a collection of resources. So think of it as staging being an environment, prod being an environment. You have a bunch of resources out there. There could be a Kubernetes cluster, there could be a VM, there could be a database, there could be a whole bunch of like resources out there. And you want to define different set of policies for each of them. So before a prod environment, probably you want to sign off from your developer engineering manager, or probably even a VP level during, let's say, Christmas days. That's the time at which you want to be limiting the amount of deployments that happens to your production environments, right? Because you don't want to change something and break something at that critical juncture. So in that environment, so in this particular environment, I have three resources. I have a namespace within an AKS cluster. I have a namespace within an EKS cluster, which is AWS, and I have a namespace within a GKE cluster. So Azure Pipelines is multi-cloud. So within the same pipeline, you can define service connections for each of them. Basically, service connection is a way for you to connect to the different clusters, and you can deploy to each of these clouds. So I've done that over here. I have set that up now. So why is this important? So now let me go back to that 2 a.m. scenario. Something has broken, right? So now if I go into the AKS resource, I actually see the health of the objects. So it's the same thing that you would get if you run kubectl get deployments. You will be able to get the health of the objects on your laptop. But what we have done over here in the context of pipelines is that if you actually drill down, you'll see a few things added over there which you wouldn't have got had you done these operations from the context of your CLI and not from the pipeline. So over here, we are saying that, hey, this is the pipeline that ran, which resulted in this object getting created in the cluster. This is the commit that was responsible for this particular change. So now how does this help me? Now I started off with the rightmost bit. I started off from the production instance. That's where I'm deploying to, right? And that's my environment. I started out there, and now I'm able to trace back a bit to the pipeline. This is the pipeline that ran, and this is the a run of the pipeline that ran. So now the next step that I can do is, okay, let me go into that run of the pipeline. So I'll take this particular, one second, I'll probably take another pipeline as an example. So within every pipeline, right, so I can actually able to see that, hey, this is the commit that was responsible for this change, and which branch I'm able to see that, right? So over here, just give it a second. So these are two independent stages, and when you click on the logs, just one second, hold on. Yeah, so when you click on the stage, you are actually seeing that, hey, these were the commits and work items that are associated with the particular deployment that happened, this particular stage deployment. So this was the change, and who triggered the change? Shashank triggered the change. So tomorrow someone else, when you're working on a product where there are hundreds and hundreds of teams, and you're trying to debug what happened, who made this change, what broke, I will trace back. Tracing back is the easier way to do things. So even if you have 100 microservices and someone's not honoring the API contract, you trace back to see what's happening. So that's where Azure Pipeline helps in the context of being able to give you that end-to-end traceability aspect, right? So now that's the first part that I wanted to speak about. Now the second part is, okay, now I have spoken about traceability and how we can use that in the context of microservices. Now the second bit that I want to focus on is, how do I promote it in a safe manner? How do I know that the application is healthy or not? How do I know that it hasn't regressed? Can I even catch these things before something breaks? Traceability is you are trying to trace back when something breaks, right? Can I check something before it breaks? How do I have those checks in place? So for that, this is the portion that I'm going to be focusing on in terms of application telemetry and the monitoring and the logging aspects. So for that, I'll quickly show you the setup that I have on right now. And over here, I have a build pipeline. The build pipeline is actually quite straightforward. There are just two tasks within that pipeline. Think of tasks as just another command that you would run on the command line script, but it does a few more things in terms of adding those traceability aspects. Just about it, right? So over here, we have two things over here. I have defined that, hey, this is the Ubuntu image. We have support for hosted agents. So this is the agent on which you're supposed to run these tasks. And I've said that, hey, whenever a change happens, which is basically because there is a trigger on the master branch, whenever a change happens, build and push an image out to the container registry. Right, so here the container registry is my ACR container registry. So what processes is serving? So this particular portion that you see over here, right? Source control, change gets checked in, the image gets built and it gets pushed to container registry. So this is the bit that I just showed you right now. So what do I need to show next? So let's go into releases. Right, so in my releases, so let's explore the release pipeline. I apologize a bit because I'm going a bit fast because of lack of time, but I'll always be there at the booth, so you can drop by and I'll go about this like for hours and hours as well. I'm very happy talking about these things, right? So now I have a manifest, like I have a Git repository connected to the pipeline and I have a container image connected to the pipeline. Why do I have these things? Because my manifest files contain the definition of what objects I want created in the cluster. That's my actual workloads and the services that are getting deployed. Now my image itself is, okay, I built and pushed an image to container registry. I did that, right? But the moment I do that, I want a deployment to the cluster to be happening. So for me, as soon as an image gets pushed, this delivers a webhook over there, and that's when my release pipeline kicks off the deployment to the Kubernetes cluster, right? So now over here, in my deployment pipeline, I have two particular stages. The first of which is actually creating the secrets that are needed to pull the image. These are the image pull secrets needed to pull the image from the container registry. But the main action is this. So this is the deployment to Kubernetes cluster task, right? So over here, I have canary as a strategy and the percentage is 25. So this is being based upon the number of replicas that are decided for ideal, and 25% of that is taken as the number of replicas for baseline and canary. Right, so now let me actually quickly show how that would look like. So I think I'll have to probably refresh. Let me do that. kubectl port forward. Just give it a second. Yeah. So what are you seeing right now? So in the top, you're seeing all the pods. You're seeing the stable deployment, the baseline, the canary, all of them. Over here, you're just seeing the baseline and the canary. What is the baseline and a canary? Look, let's say you deployed a version of your application 10 days ago and it's been running and everything is tested and stable. That's a stable version. You're happy with it running, right? So now when you're doing this deployment strategy, you're deploying a baseline which is having the same version as a stable. And you're deploying a canary which is having a newer version of the application that got triggered off when you just built, like when you just made this commit, right? So why am I comparing baseline and canary as opposed to me comparing the canary directly with stable? It's because of two reasons. One, the canary has different size as compared to the stable version. So like you comparing a canary which is probably having just one pod, comparing that to a stable version which is probably having 100 pods, the way in which the traffic is served by both of them is probably not an ideal candidate for comparison. There could be some effects in terms of some biases over there as well. And the other aspect is, stable has been running for 10 days. Canary just started 5 minutes ago. So if there are warm-up scripts associated with the canary, then the canary and the stable are not probably ideal candidates for comparison. But on the other hand, baseline I created at the time of the deployment strategy task, the task that I just showed. So it's during the time of the deployment, both the baseline and the canary got created at the same time. So in terms of both the lifespan and in terms of the size, they're sort of identical. The only difference between the baseline and canary, baseline has an older version, canary has a newer version, right? So now, what is the application metrics, like where is it coming from? So I instrument my application code. So you have different kinds of metrics. One is your node level metrics, basically your infrastructure metrics. Your Kubernetes cluster itself like spits out a whole bunch of metrics in terms of nodes and whatnot, right? The other level is your application metrics. This is the metrics that are coming over here because I've actually instrumented my code using client libraries. For this particular purpose, I've used Prometheus client library and I've instrumented my code. Why would I do that? Look, you should always be having instrumentation in your code because you want to be spotting regressions. You want to be spotting increases in latency. Like as long as you define a clear success criteria and a clear failure criteria and identify those, you should be logging those so that you can see spikes or like basically deviations, heavy deviations in any of those, right? So these are the metrics that are coming in from baseline and canary. Now what am I going to do? So if I go back to my pipeline, right? And now if I go back to my logs, you will see that the pipeline has actually paused at the second stage. And if I click on the second stage, you will see that it is waiting for me to either resume or reject the deployment. So for a pipeline admin, one of his developers has checked in his change. For him to reject or resume the deployment, he will first go to the dashboard, make that comparison, see if it's satisfying, and then if he decides to resume the deployment, he'll click over here and he'll resume. So what this will do is that this will promote the canary changes to the stable and both the baseline and the canary are cleaned away. So in this way, you're actually rolling out your application in a very, very safe manner, right? So now I've covered two aspects. First is the end-to-end traceability in terms of how we can achieve that using our environments. How you can actually trace back from the deployment target, to the pipeline, and then to this like commit, and then to actually who made that commit. So that's possible. Now that was the first portion. The second portion was how do I safely roll out my application in terms of deployment strategies? How do I use different like deployment strategy like a Kubernetes canary deployment that I have, and how do I use that to safely roll the application out? Now the third aspect that I want to speak about, so let me actually go back to that video gospel that I have. So Terraform. So as I said, infrastructure as code, you want to be not just automating your application code deployments, but you also want to be automating your infrastructure deployments as well. Why is this important, and what advantages does this have? Now let's say you've written a Terraform file. Now Terraform file actually supports like libraries for different cloud providers. AWS is one, Azure is one, GCP is one. You have providers for each of them. So now let's say you have declared that, hey, I want 6 VM resources and probably network security groups and whatnot in my Terraform files. So whenever this particular Terraform file is run, now your Terraform binary actually goes ahead and makes the calls to your, let's say it's Azure, using the SPN credentials, it will make those calls, try to create those resources. And in the subsequent run, if there is any changes, it will make sure that it maps those changes as well in terms of how those resources are getting created. Right. So now, why is this important? And also note down that policy like blob you see over there. So if I go back to my pipelines, so I have another pipeline just for Terraform demo. So over here, what I'm doing is, just give it a second. Yep. So this I've basically just used command line because we have the Terraform binary on our agents. But what I've done is, for those of you who are familiar with Terraform, or for that matter ARM templates, so it's like you're running those templates and coming up with an execution plan, right? So I've done Terraform plan, and this is the execution plan that is getting generated. The plus refer to the resources that are getting created, the minuses, in this case I don't have them, but it would refer to the resources that are getting pulled down, right? So I've executed a Terraform plan in the context of a pipeline. How this will help the developers, or rather the admins who are managing the infrastructure, is that, let's say I want to impose certain policies saying that, hey, any developer, he should not create more than 10 compute resources at a time. Like there is a certain limitation in terms of the number of resources that he can create. So now this is the planning part of it. I can drop in an approval, or I can drop in a manual intervention task to say that, hey, before actually like someone goes ahead and creates these resources, have a way to pause the pipeline over there so that someone actually resumes this action. Like that's possible. The second possibility is the policy aspect. So over here I spoke of policies, right? So first and foremost, even before Terraform like specific policies, Azure policy integration is possible with Azure pipelines already. So if you have defined your infrastructure policies in Azure policy portal, you'll be able to like basically call those as well from the context of pipelines and make sure that you are compliant with your policies that your organization has defined. That's one. Now second is, there are open source components as well. In Microsoft, we definitely love open source, right? So it's you'll be able to use Open Policy Agent, which is a very popular like policy framework, and just author a policy file for this execution plan that was created in your pipeline. So you can say that, hey, I can define a custom variable called as blast radius. I will say that, hey, only allow Terraform pipeline to go through if the developer has probably not created compute resources. Compute resources are more expensive in nature. Storage, on the other hand, is probably not as expensive and probably not going to affect your production deployments that are already out there. So if it's creating a new storage resource, I would probably not be super. So it's completely up to you in terms of how you author your policies. But the biggest point that I'm trying to make over here in the end-to-end demos, the 3 demos that I've shown, really apologize for the very short time that I had. But the biggest point that I'm trying to make is that, look, we have come and we have landed in a place where it's not just one tool and one specific thing that I have to take care of, but it's an ecosystem of things that we have to take care of. And in that context, pipeline is your central component to it, because it sort of automates the whole process. It sits at the center of it. Now you have your source control over here, you have your deployment over here. Your set of automation actions that you define is in the form of pipelines. And you can integrate that with policies, stay compliant, audit. All of these aspects matter to enterprises, and that's where pipeline comes in. So what I would seriously urge is actually play out with all these components without the pipelines first, get a feel of all these things, and then actually play it out with pipelines, and then slowly like start like building out your scenarios in terms of how do I achieve traceability, which I just showed at the first part of the demo. Then how do I achieve deployment strategies for safer rollouts of application, and third, infrastructure as code. The possibilities with pipelines and these scenarios are just endless. It's just a matter of how many things that you just want to like work with, right? Thank you. 129.
Thank you, Shashank. So you can ask 2 questions to the audience.
Okay.
And you all can connect with Shashank at the booth for questions.
Yep. So what are the 3 main scenarios that I spoke of? Actually, in the context of, I think I've said that like around 3-4 times, so I actually hope someone answers that question. Yeah.
Monitoring, like build and release process. Version controlling.
They're all partly correct answers, but I'm like just gonna see if someone gets it like bang on target, and like we do have like 4-5 minutes, I guess. Yeah.
Source code control, build and release, container.
Oh, wait. Okay. So, yeah. Traceability is one. That was the first part. Yeah.
Another is policies.
Yes,
State
that's
level.
what is the third part.
Yeah, and the third one is infrastructure.
Yeah, you got 2 out of 3. So I like deployment strategy was the second one that I spoke of. So it's fine.
It's the correct
Yeah.
one? Okay. Yeah, we'll give the prize to her. Yeah. The second question?
Here you go. Second question. Yep. So for deployment strategy, there are multiple deployment strategies possible in like the whole world, right? I used one of them. Which one was it? Okay, so wait, there are so many people who answered. I think
Who you want to choose?
Okay, it's a bit tough. So I'll ask another follow-up question. So for application monitoring, so a lot of tools were possible. So wait. Before you answer, I'm going to pick up one person. So which tool did I use for application, like APM, application performance monitoring? Grafana was for visualization. Okay. I gave one on this side, so it makes sense. Yeah.
Thank you, Shashank. May I now request Dr. Tapabrata Pal, Senior Director and Senior Engineering at Capital One, to felicitate the speaker.